Welcome. It is the Next Season podcast. Game on. Here we go. I should have done this a long time ago. I never felt right. And I know a lot of that is my own internal dialogue. But now that I'm in a place where I know what I'm passionate about, I know what I'm talking about. I don't have all the answers, but I know what I'm talking about and the direction we want to go with this and the people we want to be able to bring on. I know it's going to be valuable. I know it's going to be impactful. But really, to be honest with you, I'm doing it for me. An opportunity to share some perspectives and share my story, like I said, to connect with other people and bring on people that have done some really cool things, have a lot of really good messages to share. So that's really the goal of it. If I can be a conduit to those people to help impact, oh my gosh, this is a no-brainer. So I'm excited about all of that. That's the plan. Right now it's just about execution. Let's start doing episodes, and start to bring on some cool people and see where it goes from there. So that's the plan. But yeah, everyone's got a podcast nowadays, but why not me? And so that's the approach I take with my athletes as well and the people I coach. Why not you? So if I'm providing that perspective to other people, I better live it myself. This is my spring training, right? This is the spring training version of the Next Season podcast, right? It's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. You're probably going to hear dogs barking. I'm probably going to say a lot. And that's okay because it's who we are at Next Season, who I am at Next Season is real, authentic, raw. That's what you get. And we're going to have some fun with it. So that's really what the brand's about. And again, helping athletes prepare for that next thing, the next play, the next at bat, the next pitch, the next game, the next inning. I'm going out of order a little bit. The next game, the next series, the next season. And in life as well, the next season of life. I know a lot of athletes talk about how when their playing days are over, and this was me too, when your playing days are over, your whole identity is wrapped up into what that was. And being an athlete, it's really hard to let go of it. That's the Uncle Rico, right? Where everything revolves around what you accomplish on the field. And back in the day, life is more than that. But that's what Next Season is about. But like I said, this is going to be the spring training. I want to start off with a little bit around just my story. I don't want this whole thing to be about me, but if you're like me, so when I check out a new business or a brand or anything like that, one of the first things I do is go to their about page, right? I want to hear the story. I want to hear their origin story, their genesis. I want to hear how they got to where they are and why they got started in the business in the first place. And so if you're like me, you probably do the same thing. And so I want to start off with just giving some background, some context to my story. And then, of course, in future episodes, we're going to be going very deep into specific topics. And like I said, bring on some guests. But I want to start off a first little bit, just share my story. And maybe this is too much. Maybe it's too personal, but it's my story. It's why I'm here. And so that's where we're going to start. Obviously, Next Season is about coaching athletes, specifically coaching baseball players. And in the days before cell phone and video games, right? So we had Nintendo and Sega, right? But it wasn't the same video games that we see today. It was with my friends. We played ball. We played baseball. Baseball was my life. That was the game that I loved. It was the game that I was drawn to. I played other sports, but baseball was always number one. My best friend and I, growing up, we would do pitching practice. So he was the pitcher and I was the catcher, and he had this long lane kind of thing in his kitchen and dining room. And he would have a tennis ball and he would pitch. We'd have a couch pillow as home plate, and we would do that for hours. And I would crouch down in it and I would catch him for hours. And that was the game, right? If it was bad weather outside, that's what we did. If it was good weather outside, we'd be outside. Another friend of mine, I had a neighbor that let us play on his yard, and there'd be three of us. And he would let us play, and it was 3-man baseball. And if you've never played it, it's a great game. So it's one pitcher, one batter, and one fielder, and there's ghost runners. And if the fielder, so when the pitcher throws the batter, obviously, and we played with tennis balls and wiffle ball bats that you stuffed and taped, and it was awesome. But if the fielder, and here's the other wrinkle to this, so you either had to play pull or you had to play hitting as oppo taco, right? Because you had one person in the outfield. And so you'd have to hit in that direction. If the fielder got it back to the pitcher before the runner reached first base, the pitcher was on the mound, that was an out. If the runner beat the throw, then he was safe and you get a ghost run and you play on. And we play that for hours and hours and hours. We had a ton of success as a team growing up, primarily because we had a core group of players, and two of those two friends were part of that core group. But we had a core group of about 7 or 8 of us that played from the time we were like 6 years old up until 15. And we had a lot of success, and we never really had any true studs. I think I was the only kid in that group that ended up playing college baseball and certainly D1, but we didn't have a lot of studs. There weren't any big masters. We didn't have any kids that threw really hard. We were just scrappy. When we were 15 years old, we were fortunate to bring home a state championship for the Babe Ruth League. And there was a bunch of other tournaments and playoffs and things like that we had in various leagues that we played in. So we had a lot of success. But despite those successes, despite the hours of play, I can tell you that I never really truly worked hard to maximize the talent that I had personally. At least not consistently with any intention or purpose. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the strongest, but I could play and I had good numbers. And so I coasted. And I'm not trying to make any excuses, but to paint a picture and part of the story that I want to share, because it's a major piece of who I am and why I struggled. And like I said, it's part of that story, but I didn't have great examples of love, of connection, resilience, and commitment and things like that. Not in relationships, not in life, and certainly not when it came to athletics. The examples that I saw in my life were conflict and drama and some trauma and abandonment. That's the feelings that I get. And I'm not trying to sound victim at all. I'm just laying out the reality. And I didn't realize the impact of all of this until many, many years later, right? I just disassociated myself with it. I compartmentalized it. I stuffed it away. I don't remember a ton from my high school days. I had some pretty bad concussions. I was in a car accident. I had some on the field injuries, both in baseball and football. And honestly, like I said, I just pushed down a lot of that kind of as a defense mechanism. And both those concussions and that defense mechanism, unhealthy to some degree of pushing it away, factored into my interest in neuroscience. So I'm fast forwarding quite a bit, but it did have factored into that interest that I had in neuroscience and understanding the brain and how to heal the brain and actively finding ways to improve when it comes to mood and performance and things like that. And so while I had some good experiences in high school, some great memories, there was plenty that was not good at all. From a baseball standpoint, again, I did well, right? I had some success. I got some playing time. I didn't really get to play varsity as a freshman. I got some playing time as a sophomore, and then junior, senior years played varsity. But like I said, I was not getting any major looks, right? And I wasn't really assertive in the recruiting process. That's just it just didn't happen. So I didn't go about the college search process smartly. What I did was I picked a college, I applied, I got accepted, and that was it. I remember learn from me, right? I took the SATs twice. And this is early 2000s. Okay. The world's a little bit different now, but I took the SATs twice. And the second time I overslept and I showed up late. Yeah. So it just didn't take it seriously. At that point, I was on my own. I was 16, 17 years old and I had a job. I got myself to and from school, to and from the job, did stuff around. I would get home from work and I was dinner on my own. I didn't have that same structure that I want to make sure I have for my family and my kids. And I share that just to share, there's a lot of people that experience that same thing. And if you're aware of it, that's the first way that you can start to affect positive change. And if you're not aware of it, maybe this is a way to become more aware of it. Yeah. So going back to the college search, I didn't really think a lot about academic programs. I didn't think about cost. Like I said, I did not approach this maturely at all. I thought about location and I thought about an opportunity to play D1, and I wanted to get it over with. That was it. Again, do not do it this way. Okay. So not a lot of discipline, not a lot of structure, certainly not a lot of effort. And I coasted into preferred walk-on status. That's the high school years. I'm sure at some point, and youth, I'm sure at some point we'll dive deeper into that and share some specific examples and stories. But for episode 1, that's probably enough. I wanted to start off and just break the ice with you a little bit, introduce myself. I'm Kevin, by the way, Coach Kevin, and I'm sure that we'll talk more about, as we go in this conversation, talk a little bit more about more recent history and where we're at with next season, how we got here and what we're doing. But I want to lay the groundwork a little bit and talk about, have my Uncle Rico moment and go back in the day a little bit. And then we'll talk about college next, and we'll go from there. So I'm excited. I'm thrilled. I look forward to getting to know many of you, building our community, and improving our performance on the field, off the field, talking baseball, learning the game, but really the mental side of the game. I'm not going to do a whole lot with the on the field stuff. I'm sure we'll have some conversations, but really the mental approach. And I'm so excited about that. We're going to build a community. This is the beginning. So in our next conversation, we'll probably talk a little bit more about college, and we'll go from there. All right. For now, peace.